Welcome back to the Millennial Classics, where we talk about the best and most memorable movies, music, and culture changing events from our generation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time we do something this special. We say that this is the Millennial Classics, so we talk about the cultural changing events. But how can you talk about culture when you don't talk about books? And this week is the first week we do a book review, a part of a book review. And because it's a new series, it's a new type of review that we're doing. We also have a new guest. Nate, how you doing?
What's up, big dog?
Hanging. Uh,
Hanging too.
that's the thing. Like I needed to find a friend that was willing to read a book. You know, us millennials, we don't read as much as I think we should. So I found Nate Menninger. Menninger, why don't you tell the folks who are you? Like just like bare bones, who are you?
My name's Nate Dog. No, it's not Nate Dog. It's just Nate. Swartig and I went to school together,
Yes.
middle school and high school together.
Yeah.
We squared off a lot in football. There's one particular play that really hurt. And so I think we had some mutual respect for each other. And then, Swartik and I we've been in and out of each other's circles for a few years now. I've came on his show a few times. He even flew to help me out with a project I was doing when I was really on one. And yeah, so Swartik gave me a call the other day and he was like, or he gave me a text. He's like, "Yo, are you writing a book?" And I thought I thought it was a hacker. I was like, "Is this Swartik?" And he was like, "Yeah. Are you writing a book?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "I don't know. Are you? But also, you want to read a book? You want to do this reading thing?" And I was like, "I feel like I should read again in my life."
Yes, we
So
should all.
I was hesitant, but then I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And so we picked. He sent me some books. I think I said this book, Three Body, or it was a kind of a mutual thing.
Yeah.
And then we picked it.
Yeah,
We
so
picked it.
like so if you can see by the title, you know we're talking about the three body problem. Nate and I were doing this, but we're also we're not going to talk about the entire book. In fact, I have only read up until the last word in part one. I think Nate, you're a few chapters ahead of me, right?
I'm not even going to confirm that because
Oh,
I don't. We're part one only.
part one only. That's all we're talking about. And this is how we're going to be doing this moving forward. Just because it's just fresh in your mind, instead of trying to talk about the whole book in one quick review, we're going to chop this bitch up and we're going to talk about it and make predictions and hopes and plans for what the book and how the book is going to end. But just to get into this book, so the book is called The Three Body Problem. And look, I'm just going to say this right now, out from the gate. Excuse me for all the pronunciation with all of the names, including the authors. I'm gonna try this, but Nate, you're the language guy.
No, don't
You,
swing this on me. Don't.
I'm gonna try to pronounce this name. Shizing Liu.
No, I think that's really wrong, dude.
Okay, so help
Like
me out here.
Sixin. I think. Well, I think I have it wrong too.
Wait, what?
Sixin.
Sixin Liu
Sixin Liu.
Liu.
Sixin Liu. I
Okay.
think we both have that wrong. So
Yeah. But that, so
don't
you
quote
guys,
us on that.
please don't. And it was translated by Ken Liu. Um, but yes, that's the name. That's the book we are doing. And just I want to give like the briefest of briefest on the author's history. So when I looked him up, he has written three books total, including the Three Body Problem, but they're all part of the same trilogy. So he wrote just one series. It's a sci-fi novel, and it's like international now. It was like a big deal. It
Big
first
deal.
came out in 2008. It was translated into English in 2014, but now it's like world renowned worldwide and so big that Netflix, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you could see this, but Netflix is going to be coming out with a TV show.
The reason why I thought about this book is back in
Yes.
2017, I was over in Asia and I was getting a little philosophical, having a couple of drinks. It was like a two for one, and the guy's like, "You should read Three Body Problem." And I always thought it was supposed to just be like pure sci-fi, pure, not even science fiction. I just assumed it was like a scientific problem. And I never read it. And then recently my brother read it. He's like, "Dude, I was up late night because I was just like thinking." I was like, "Oh, okay. Like three body problem. I don't know what it is, but I imagine it's pretty scientific." And so that's how we came up with it.
Yeah, so I know, and I like that because we have to talk about why we decided to pick this book. Yeah, we mentioned the fact that it's Netflix. We mentioned the fact that Nate was in China, and but
No,
like
I was not. I was in.
in Asia, he was in Asia, and someone told him that he should read this book, and that also his brother was telling him that this is a great book and you should probably read it because it had me thinking. Those are all really good reasons. But like honestly, this really was like on top of mind for me. But Nate, you were the one who suggested this book. Like you gave me the background, the big background basis, but is there like a reason today that it came to mind, or the last time we had a conversation it came to mind, or are you just like, if we're gonna do a book, let's do it? And why sci-fi? Well, out of all of the types of books, why did you suggest this?
Yeah, well, I'm like big into science fiction, not in science fiction, just big into physics, and I'm looking at electrodynamics and electromagnetism and like processing speech and all these aspects of really coding and engineering that I never really focused on before. And I'm obviously never going to have a real grasp on them, but it's entering me into this world. And so I was like, I want to read really anything that's having to do with this that's going to increase my knowledge. But I'm not quite, I don't know if I don't know. This one, I don't know what this is. It doesn't, everyone's saying it's important. So I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but I'm going to dive into it because that's kind of what I'm fixated on in this realm is the sci-fi stuff. So that's why I said it.
And for me, like the reason I was so gun ho once Nate suggested it, I was like, number one, yes, it's like topic, it's like trending. I'm hip. Let's do it. Number one. Number two, I am a big sci-fi guy. I'm like huge. I'm newly into sci-fi. If y'all have ever read or have watched the TV show The Expanse, absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolute must read if you do like the sci-fi type of stuff. Like I said, I'm only in part one, but so far I'm enjoying this. We'll start with the cover. When you saw this cover, Nate, what came to mind? Do you even, I like to, people say don't judge a book by its cover, but I want to judge this book by its cover. When you're looking at this cover, what do you think? What does this make you think of?
Science.
I mean, it. Yeah. I mean,
there's a mysticism with the pyramid. I mean, and then there's also this thing that I came into knowing recently. It's called the N-body problem. This is like an actual scientific problem, which is the inability. I think it's kind of been solved now, but it's the long-standing inability to track and calculate a chaotic system in space. So in space, you can have a system like ours, which is stable, and the planets are generally orbiting in the sun, and you can predict their orbits more or less. And then you can see a system throughout the galaxy of chaotically moving planets. And so they were calling this the N-body problem because once you get past two bodies, the third body makes it extremely hard, if not impossible, to predict the orbits.
Oh, shit.
I fell into that last year, and I was actually I was just learning.
I mean, that might be the answer to the book. I've never heard. This is the first time I'm hearing this, and it makes a lot of sense. But like, I'm not sure yet. But when you
give it a Google,
probably that's on the list. But when you mentioned like the mysticism because of the pyramid, all I can think about, like when I see this cover, first thing that comes to mind is when you turn on like those National Geographic sci-fi channels and it's like the ancient civilization or the ancient aliens that built the pyramids. That's what I thought this book was. Yeah. And like, as much as I like science fiction, that stuff always made me feel like fuck off, right? So, so I'm not gonna lie to you, but I'm excited. I'm really excited. So this book opens up in a pretty fucking wild way. So in like the intro, the first chapter of the book, it's basically this war or army, different factions of some revolution that's happening. And
I think it's a real revolution. It's like a real revolution.
Okay. And see, that's the thing I also wanted to ask you. Is it actually a real revolution?
It's definitely a real revolution.
No, it's not.
The Cultural Revolution. I don't know anything about it. So people don't have a lot. If you're worried about knowledge, don't look at me.
This is not.
I know there was the Cultural Revolution, the Maoists, and there was little red books, and that was a whole big thing in China. And
okay,
that's a whole big era. So I imagine this is that revolution, and this is embarrassing. Now this is on the internet. People know I don't know.
Who gives two shits?
But anyways, in my mind, I'm like, boom, red books. This has got to be that uprising or that revolution. I don't mean uprising, and that's it. So that's what I'm looking at. Tiananmen Square. Have you ever heard of Tiananmen Square?
Yes, of course I've heard of Tiananmen Square, but I didn't put two and two together. But like at the same time, yes. Yeah. Okay, so the book opens up. There is a revolution happening, and the description of this young lady who's like waving a flag or doing something, and this other army is like shooting bullets through this young lady. She's this 15-year-old girl, and the description of her death is insane.
Yeah, it's
insane, right? It's like bullets going through her, and then she falls on some spears.
It's such hilarious. It's hilarious. She like falls down, and then I think they throw her on the spears, or she's on the spears.
Yeah.
And then they just shoot her body while she's on the spears.
Yes.
And they just riddle her, and she's like jolting, and that's what he describes. It's like Saw.
It is a crazy opening to a book, but like I don't know, like the terminology used when talking about a writer's style, it was interesting enough for me not to be disgusted, but also like want to continue to read, and like descriptive enough for me to see it, but not be turned off by it. It was kind of it was very well done.
It was kind of comical though. I'm not gonna lie. But just because it was so absurd. It was like, and she was perfectly laid across the last two spikes on the fence.
Exactly. It's like, come on, man.
Okay, man.
But like that's just like the intro, and then they actually start the story. And the story starts with the Professor Ye Zetai.
He's basically going to the gallows.
Exactly.
He's basically going to the gallows, right? So he's going on trial, and they had these people that explains that like they take the academics of the time and they run them through this like this is completely wrong word, but like a desynchronization phase where they basically beat you down and make you admit that you are completely under the influence of reactionary behavior. I don't know what reactionary is.
Yes. About thank you for mentioning it. Yeah.
There's about 300 times in this chapter. And I still like, is it a reaction? Like, isn't everything a reaction?
Yeah. It's insane to me. Let's talk about this for a hot second, please, because I don't understand what the difference between like the accepted science versus a reactionary science would be. Like the thing is, the entire book, like the entire first part, they're judging and talking about this is reactionary science. This is reactionary science. But I want to know what your accepted science says, so I know what the difference is. As of right now, there's no difference. I don't know what regular or the accepted science in this book is.
No, and I think some of us out there might Google it, but not you and I. And so we're left with really, I'm like, reactionary just stands for everything capitalism associated.
Yes.
And so if it's a science rule with the name of someone in that world, then they strip the name. But that's still, that's my only definition. I don't know why they call it reactionary.
Exactly.
But hopefully someone will tell us.
Hopefully soon.
Because we're not going to Google
We're not going to Google none of this shit. But I did like it. And like the description of like, he's like, oh, did you, like when he is at the gallows and he's getting like questioned and all of this stuff. The insanity of this situation is, yes, he's getting questioned. Yes, he's a reactionary scientist, but they bring up his wife to do the yelling and the shaming of him. Like, I thought that was a little intense, but right from the get, you get the feel that, well, throughout this entire situation, they're describing how all these other scientists in the past have killed themselves, have either turned and said, oh, we give up, like, you guys are right, all of this reactionary scientist is insane, you guys are right. But Zitzai is one of the very few last standing who's like, no, science is science, and I'm not going to fucking, like, change my ways.
And he's wearing this big, like, plaque around his head, and like a metal hat,
like
it's just parading him around. And his wife, it's already deep into this revolution. His wife has already spoken out against it. Like they're already not boys, and so
they're not boys. He's
on stage, and he's like the biggest resistor. Like he's the like last person. He's like, fucking no, I'm not saying I was a lie. Like that, this is science. Yeah, and then then they're up there, and his wife is denouncing him, and then he answers her with like an amazing like scientific answer, and she's like, "Oh shit, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do." And so, then just the like normal soldiers just end up whipping him to death.
They beat this dude's ass, all like beat him down, and he ends up dying, and it's wild. Because this is where you first get to meet, I think, the protagonist of the book. Nate, help me with these names. I think Wenji.
It's Yi Wenji.
Yi Wenji. Okay, so this is when we meet Yi Wenji, who is or was a student at that college, and she studied astrophysics. And while this entire gallows situation where her dad is getting beat to death, and her mom is the one that's blaming or like shouting, like outing her dad, she's like basically below the stage trying to get up, but some person is holding her back, being
Hold her
like,
down and say, you're gonna lose your life. You're gonna lose your life.
exactly. So just don't do anything.
Yeah. So she's pissed, and then everyone leaves, and she's hanging out, and she goes up to her dead father's body, and she just hangs out there a little bit and soaks it in.
Soaks it in. Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
it's really no. There was actually a really dark line which I saw, which is like, it goes, she stared at her father's lifeless body, and the thought she could not voice dissolved into her blood. Which is just like fucking. It's basically saying that she's fucking just inhaling trauma.
Yeah,
she's just inhaling permanent trauma.
That's beautifully written, and that's a great quote to have at this moment. Because how else do you soak that in? Like, how else does that get into your body? Like, it is an intense situation. You just heard your dad get beat to death, and your mom was basically responsible for a lot of it.
And you saw it.
And you saw it. It's like, what else are you going to do, right? What else are you going to do? Before the end of the chapter, she ends up going to one of her dad's like coworkers, colleagues, and one of her colleagues was also, I don't know if she was as much of a like last hurrah as her dad was, but she ends up committing suicide with a bunch of sleeping pills.
And she had, looking around, and she had, because she was accused of being like this also reactionaryist, yes. Right? AKA capitalist.
Exactly.
And they associated high heels and lipstick. And so she died with high heels and lipstick on, which is basically like an FU.
Exactly.
Like, an FU, I'm still doing me.
Yeah. I'm going to go out, but I'm going to go out the way I want to go out.
Yeah. So, at this point, you're just kind of like,
what the fuck?
Good, at this point, like, this is a good ass book. This is written well. This is like, I'm going to read this. And for me, I remember I opened this book up because I didn't know I already had a copy. I went and bought this, but I had bought a copy. When I was in my scientific phase, I bought a copy and I opened it up and I read like 2 words. I was like, no, this is just a story. And then I put it away. Gotcha. But now I'm like, oh. And there is, as you get into it, there is actually a lot of like real scientific information.
Like too. Legit. Exactly. Like legit. There's like legit science in here. And yeah, so that's chapter 1. And I think it is a great start. It is a great opener to a book. I think it could turn a few people off because it is like we just described. First of all, it opens up with a woman getting shot and like laying into some spears, and then her dad gets beaten to death, and then she finds someone who's fucking committed suicide. So I can see the intensity scaring some folks, but it's not constant murder throughout. The next couple of chapters are a little on the calmer side comparatively, but just wanted to let y'all know, if you haven't read this book, don't be scared away by this first chapter. Chapter 2.
There's also just to add, there is, if you do have some scientific knowledge, I think you get a lot more out of this than other people. Not like that much more, but like there's like his explanations when he's providing responses when he's up on that throne, which is not a throne, but when he's up getting killed.
Like I don't think they kill folks on thrones, but yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Some of our like, this is like, you often have lectured students on the reactionary Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, which refers to like Schrodinger's cat. If you ever heard of Schrodinger's cat,
yep.
That's a whole other thing. And so it just helps if you know about those certain things, which are pretty cool to even Google like Schrodinger's cat on your own. That will help you. But you don't really, I don't know. Did you know any about that? And did you miss that? Or did you know it?
So I understood some of it. I don't want to even say understood. I picked up on some of it. Some of it, like, there was like, oh, I know that name. I know of this theory. I understand that. The things that touched me that I liked about this intro, like this first chapter, was his description of the conversation. Albert Einstein in this book had said, in China, any idea that dared to take flight would only crash back to the ground. The gravity of reality is too strong. It's because
there was this poor person. He was like, how much money does that person make?
Exactly. It was like 15 cents. It was like 15 cents a day. And he was just like, whatever idea you have that you want to like break through, it's not possible here in China because the gravity of the reality is too strong. I just thought that was such a beautiful line that explained
when you say
it
makes sense. When you say it, it
Exactly.
makes sense.
Right? Exactly. So the actual science, no, to answer your question, but like the ideas around the science, at least when explained, I did pick up on, right? Like when the
Yeah.
dad was saying, they were accusing him, you taught relativity. And he's like, relativity is the foundation of the reality in which we live in. If I don't teach that in the fundamentals class, there is no science.
Right.
And I was like, of course, right? Of course that makes sense. But then they're like, reactionary idealism. I'm like,
Right.
word, word. But
Go
yeah,
on to chapter 2.
chapter 2. So they jump 2 years later. And in this chapter,
Yeah, it's Ye Wenji, and
yeah,
she's
she
she's
is in
cutting
this,
freaking logs.
yeah, she's cutting logs. They're like deforesting some forest in China. I don't understand
I
like
think it's
the
in Mongolia,
goal.
actually.
Mongolia. I don't understand the goal of this, but it's just what the army is telling them to do. And Ye Wenji is just one of those folks. Just to describe a little bit what happens.
There's one line: when the tank clusters of the Soviet revisionist imperialists, you just throw a bunch of words together there, rolled over the Sino-Mongolian border. So it's not in Mongolia; it must be at the edge of China. They would arm themselves and make their own bodies the first barrier in the Republic's defense. So essentially, I think the army has set them out here to the border of China with Mongolia to prepare for the Soviet imperialist reactionary interior to come in, and then they'll be there, and I guess the trees will be cut, so
Yeah,
they'll be able to see.
they'll be able to say, I really appreciate you doing this with me, Nate, because a lot, like you just said, to when you're reading some of this stuff, it kind of just goes over your head when they put all those words together. But thank you for explaining, because I was like, what the fuck are they chopping trees for? Well, what
It's
are
good
they?
to
Why are they chopping trees? What's going on here?
it's good to
Um,
have two of us because I miss the stuff that you say. So
well, good. That's what this is what this is all about.
we're
And
in
if
it
you're listening,
together.
yes, and if you're listening to this, definitely comment down below so we can pick up from what y'all have seen that we haven't. But yes, they chopping trees, and then this dude by Mongo,
That
by
asshole.
yes, by Moulin. By Moulin comes by and he seems like this environmental guy. He's from this news production company. He sees this huge tree got chopped down and he's like, do you know how old this tree is? And he's like,
Yeah, they have this weird like sensual tree touching episode.
I was like, what the fuck is going on, bro?
It seemed like a lot to me. It seemed like a lot to me.
It was a little heavy-handed here. She's like caressing the tree, and she's like, "Oh, I noticed someone else caressing the tree.
Yeah,
We must know each other or understand
yeah.
each other."
We love each other.
The dude,
Also, just to add,
go ahead.
okay, are all tree names are all tree names the same? Are they different in different languages? I don't know that. I speak a bunch of languages
Oh,
and I've never really focused on tree names. But like I was reading, I was like, are these the same? Are they the same in China?
wait,
Like
that's a great question.
Arutifolia? Because sign it like genus and family, those are the same. I think that's like the scientific language.
Exactly.
But I don't know about tree names. So, anyways, I was just like, what?
I don't think so. Well,
I
I
don't think
mean,
so either.
yeah, I really don't think that they use the same tree names. They definitely call it different things, but like in the translation, obviously it ends up translating to whatever it is. So I'm not the guy to ask. Moulin is over here counting the rings in the trees, and he's like, no one cares. He's first of all, he asked this random wood chopper guy who's like all muscle and chopping down fucking trees, and he's like, do you know how old this tree is? And the guy's like, who gives a shit? It's a fucking tree.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's 300 years old. Do you not feel anything? He's like, what do you want me to feel? It's a tree, guy. It's a tree. But but anyways, Ye and this dude, by Moulin, they connect on this, and Mr. Moulin ends up giving I'm sorry, I keep calling her Yi giving Yi the book, and the book's name is
Silent Spring.
Silent Spring, the name of the chapter. He ends up giving her the book. She reads it. She really likes it. She goes back to return the book, and when she's returning the book, Mr. Moulin shows her a draft of a paper he wants to send to the Chinese government, explaining why chopping down the trees is not good for the environment, how it's like bad, and how the pesticides is like horrible and all of this stuff. And
That's something we should focus on, is because she loved this book because it was about how there's a whole section here.
Talk to me.
It's about like the use of pesticides the use of pesticides that seem to be just a normal, proper, or at least neutral act. But this book basically demonstrated how this use of pesticides was going to ruin the entire world.
Yeah.
And so she's reading this and she's like, this is like, we can get into this time because it's like, she says, if this was so, then how many other acts of humankind that seem normal or even righteous, and I'm paraphrasing here, were in reality evil?
Yeah. I have that
And so,
same line
dude,
highlighted. I love it. Thank
yeah,
you. Yes.
what did you think when you read that?
It does make you stop, take a breath, and question everything.
I read it and I was like, well, technically everything could be construed as evil.
I
Like
don't
everything,
know.
everything.
I disagree. Absolutely not everything. No,
Well,
not everything.
you could say everything because you could always put something at harm, like this use of this table is killing the termites in this place,
Oh, okay.
and those
Okay.
termites
Okay.
are being harmed.
Yeah. But it's not like the reality of the situation is animals kill each other all the time. So it's not like the actual killing of the other animals. If you are born and if you are part of nature, which every person that is born on this planet is, if you are part of nature and you're doing the nature thing, you're killing animals to eat, you're doing all of that stuff, I think all of that counts as righteous and fair and not evil. But the second you do anything that is unnecessary for your livelihood or for your species livelihood, then I think yes. And when I say that, that means everything past agriculture could be construed as evil.
Yeah, but apparently that's bullshit because pesticides do have a lot of benefits, and you can say there are a lot of negatives, but they do allow food to be spread more evenly across the country to last longer and to provide people to live to greater, longer ages. And yeah, you could say it's bullshit's really bad for you, but look at the look at United States. Like, look at how big we've grown our human beings. Look at how long they live. Yeah, there's some bad shit, but pesticides is a big factor of our economy and of our eating. So it's like when I read that, I'm like, everything could be construed as fucking negative,
Yeah,
depending on how you paint it.
I guess I guess so. I guess so. But like I no, I disagree, Nate. The reason I disagree is because you're saying pesticides are like because pesticides are evil, but like pesticides is like the border between agriculture and in the industrial world. Pesticides are the industrial world infused into agriculture to make it so that we don't have to do this every season. And you know what I mean? So like it
Right.
makes it possible. I'm saying if you were to do the farming minus the pesticides and just get what Mother Earth gives you, that isn't evil. Like you have to explain to me why regular farming minus the pesticides is considered evil.
No, but this guy's saying that pesticides are evil. That's what he's saying.
Yes. And
So it's just bullshit.
I agree with you.
Like I can say pesticides are bad, yes, but a good arguer could also say pesticides are good, and there's many reasons for why they could say that they're good.
They're good for human beings. Are they good for Mother Earth?
Well, this is also, I mean, the issue you get. I don't know how philosophical you want to get, but
Let's talk
you
about
could argue. I mean, you could argue a lot of different things. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, depends how far an argument you want to go, but
yeah, no. I hear you.
how existential you want to get. But you know, if
Yeah.
if Earth is all of us and pesticides allow us to grow to a higher version of ourselves and humanity, and we're able to take Earth to farther light years, and I mean, there's infinite arguments.
That is a good point.
But I
No,
read that. The point is, I read that and I immediately saw the flip that if you could argue everything is evil, you could argue everything is good. And that made me scared because you could argue that, like, you know, that's the difference between a dictator and like a not dictator, you know,
okay.
if
I
that makes
guess
sense.
you'd have to explain a little bit more, but I can see where you're going from there. Because if you can't argue everything is evil, then obviously you're arguing. So the opposite of that argument is going to
Right.
be everything is good, which I think is bad. But at the same time, I don't know if that statement is saying everything is evil. She's asking, what else have we been doing that could be
Well, then, but
evil?
she does say, is it possible that the relationship between humanity and evil is similar to the relationship between the ocean and an iceberg floating on it? That
Oh,
they're made of the
yes.
same material. So she is thinking like me. She's like, oh shit, there is no fucking evil and humanity. It's the same thing, you know?
Yes, because also like we look at a lion and a lion tearing human beings apart. Like if you had a lion in the room and it would tear someone apart, you would say that lion's fucking evil, but that lion's not evil. So yes, it's like the ocean and the iceberg. So the iceberg, like yes, it's the same material and they're floating in the same whatever space, ocean, but it's not all evil. Like the ocean is the ocean, and the iceberg might be evil, but it's part of the ocean. Yes, of course, there's evil in all humanity, but it's not all evil. That's the way I'm seeing this. At least that's the way I'm
Well,
seeing this.
yeah, we all see it differently. And if we're gonna go into this book, we're gonna have many of these arguments because there's gonna be a lot of fucking
Oh, 100%. 100%.
sci-fi stuff.
She writes, so he basically hands her the copy. This is back to Mr. Moulin handing her the copy of this letter he wants to send to the Chinese government, to the government, the commissioner, whatever they call
it wasn't very clear. It wasn't very clear. It cleared up later, but
yeah, because she's reading it and she's like, "Oh, your handwriting is horrible. Why don't
he's freaking out. He's like super because he was chopping the trees and he hadn't held an axe because he was, he was the writer who loved it. And so his hands are shaking and she's like, I can write that for you. And so she writes it and signs it. And this was his effort to extend to the government, the high orders of the government, a call for a difference. And he said it explains that they didn't usually answer anything, but if sometimes they did answer and they did adopt it, and the person who wrote it became like a hero.
Exactly.
And then the flip side is what happened.
Yep. And the flip side too. So it's like it's high risk, high reward, but it is high risk. So if they accept it, great. You're a winner. Your name is in the lights, right? You get like promoted to whatever the fuck. But if they don't, chances are it's considered reactionary and you get burned at the stake, So
she got arrested. She got arrested because the D-bag.
Yep.
They came to him and were like, well, she didn't even know this. They came to her first and were like, what is this? What is this? And she's like, what do you mean? Like, that's Bai did that. And she's like, they're like, you're a piece of shit. You're lying. Bai already said that you were the liar. Bai already said this was your thing. And I thought there was like one hole, like why, like, I don't know. I thought there was one hole. I don't know.
What do you mean
the
one
writing,
hole?
like, wouldn't the writing be, I don't know. Like, wouldn't the writing, I don't know. There's something about the writing in the letter. Like, wouldn't it be tied to Bai? Wouldn't it be his perspective or some shit or be related? Like, this I'm just thinking of now, but wouldn't it include his like writers? He worked for a company.
Exactly.
Wouldn't it include his company or some shit? Or was he just writing as an anonymous person?
No. So what I remember in the description of the situation was that basically, yes, it was him that like sent in the letter, and they are aware that he sent in the letter, but he told them that it was her idea and it was he was doing her a favor by submitting the letter in for her for the company is basically what happened. Because yes, obviously it went through his production news production company or whatever, but he said this was all her idea, this was all Yi's idea, so don't blame me. And they did come after her.
And they came after her and they got her.
And they arrested her. I'm happy that they had the description at the end. They basically just been like, they were like, this was the last time his name meant anything in the history books. He ended up living in Canada and dying alone. I was like, he's an asshole. He didn't have this horrible death, but I appreciated them letting us know that he meant nothing to nobody, because that's such a dick move to do. It's such a dick move. Anyway, she's in this prison. They take her up to this prison cell place, and then comes in this really nice lady who, facing lady. She's basically like a lawyer, and she's like, this is what I need. I need you to sign these papers. It has nothing to do with what happened to you. And she's like, she reads through the papers. Reading through the papers, it's basically a conversation of her dad with some other scientists about some project that she's not aware of. And it's all of these conversations that her dad had. And she's basically like, I have no idea about any of these conversations. I'm not signing to be a witness saying that these conversations happened. And then it blows up from there. The lady's like, go ahead.
Because she's facing being a reactionist or reactionaryist.
Yes.
That's probably the wrong term. But that's what she's facing. So she's facing being on trial for that. And they say like the harsh trial, I guess later they say it would be only 10 years, but they do say at that moment, who knows? She said it could be penalized to the harshest of actions, the harshest of penalties. So you're thinking, I don't know, she could be killed and she's sitting there and she gets this thing, and she says no. And it's like, I actually thought it was against her character that they've already built. I thought it wasn't very accurate.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Dude, no way.
Because you have, I think her character is very like, I don't want to fight the power, like I just want to survive. But at the same time, the thing that got me to believe that she would say no is because every person she's ever trusted has been killed or turned their back on her. Her dad killed in front of her because he stood up for what he wanted. Her mom turned her back on the entire family. Her teacher, her dad's friend, committed suicide. This dude that she had just a great connection with, who gave her a book, fucking ratted her out. So she's like, I don't care how nice this lady is. I'm not doing anything that I don't 100% believe because I can't trust a single human being. That's the only reason I believe that she was like, I'm doing what I know what to do because that's the only choice I have. I can't trust anybody. And this lady literally just walked in.
That's like really good. I didn't actually think of that, but I would say that if that's the case, then wouldn't you sign the sheet? I mean, you've already taken on your dad's death. You've already said nothing. You've already taken on this job at the external side of China just to survive and be hidden within their mesh without them knowing. Like, you've already dedicated your whole life, and you're gonna stay. It says in that earlier chapter, she's just gonna stay in the forest forever. Like, that's what she wants to do. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you're gonna get arrested, and now you're gonna be like, no, fight the power. Your dad's dead. Everyone's dead. You don't. There's nothing you sacrifice by saying him.
No.
The only thing is you live longer. Yeah. That's what you get. And then she's like, no. And if I don't know. I feel like
I almost you're almost persuading me over, just because the description she gives is like, look, if you say no, we are gonna give you the harshest punishment. But if you say yes and sign the paper, we'll just make you write a paper saying that you made a mistake and you get to go back to the woods. So it's also not like a super defiant no. It's not like, no, I stand for like against the revolution. It's like, no, I didn't do this. No, exactly. I didn't do this. And it's not like super violent saying of no. So it's like, I don't know. I just felt it was kind of inconsistent with what I thought. I mean, it makes sense, but it does make sense.
If that were me and that were my character arc, I might say I would probably just fucking sign it, to be honest.
I say YOLO. I don't know what the fuck.
My dad's dead. He'll forgive me, and fucking like, who gives a fuck? At this point, if my dad were alive, he wants me to survive. Exactly. So I'm going to survive.
I agree with you. Whether it is correct for the character or not correct for the character, this is a pivotal moment, and this is a huge character, like, stepping stone for her. So her making this decision, like, gives us the sense that she has the resolve of like an iron fucking, like, I don't know, like just the resolve to do the right thing when the right thing is the like the wrong choice or the bad choice. You know what I'm trying to say here. Anyway,
we see her. It's, I guess, the first time we see her
do
action.
That. Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Any of her action, actually.
In the previous chapter, they do mention that she's super, super quiet, so much so that a lot of the folks that actually worked in the cutting actually thought she was a mute. So she just tries to stay away from making any decisions or being heard, so she doesn't have to make these decisions. But I hear you. This is the first time you see her do anything that is worth any decision-making power, right? After she says no, the lady who is all of this really nice, I'm going to help you, I can lower your sentence or whatever, turns around, throws half the bucket of water on her and half the bucket of water on the blanket so she can't warm up, and then they walk out. And then they do this metaphoric, like, symbol, like this description of like this ice situation, and I'm just really confused. I'm really confused by that metaphor that they were trying to describe there. Maybe you can help me understand, why is it an iceberg? Why does she feel like she's on ice? Or why is she seeing ice? Like, I was just confused.
Well, one thing, why are all military boxes green? Anyways.
It's a good note. In every movie I've ever seen, it's always green.
It's like, they're green in China, they're green in America. No, I mean, she wakes up, she's frozen. So she's basically dying. She basically thinks she's dying.
Her being cold.
Right. She felt the entire universe was a huge block of ice, and she was the only spark of life within it.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
She was the little girl about to freeze to death, and she didn't even have a handful of matches, only illusions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it breaks down. It's basically like she's just she's just gone. She just doesn't give a fuck. I mean, she gives a fuck, but it doesn't matter. She's in a
Exactly.
floating world of nothingness, and she's just like, at this point, I'm just in it. I'm just in it right now.
I we did forget to mention one very important thing. The actual paperwork of the describing of what her dad had the conversation about was from her sister.
Oh
Her
yeah, yeah.
sis her yeah, her sister was the
yeah.
one that wrote the article. Well, supposedly had written the article, or not the article, like the transcript of these conversations that she was supposed to sign that yes, it happened or no, it didn't happen. And
And she's
it
been bad for a long time.
exactly. Um,
Yeah.
but it did mention in this chapter that her sister died 2 years ago. Do you think that her sister was the girl in the beginning of the book?
Which girl?
The girl that
No.
got shot and fell on the fucking spears.
Oh, dude, I don't know. There was a weird thing that dude, I might have missed that because there was a weird thing when she got arrested. When she got arrested, she saw she saw a flag.
Right?
Like when she
That's
was
what I'm
getting carried
saying.
off, she saw a flag and someone
Yeah.
holding the flag. But I didn't know who it was because the person holding the flag was supposed to
Kept on
be
changing, right? It was first her
against the
sister.
revolution.
Yeah.
Wasn't the person against the revolution and they
No,
were
no, no, no,
yang?
no, no. It wasn't a specific, like, idealistic person.
It
It
was
was
the
just
third battalion or something.
whatever it was, the person that she was seeing holding the flag kept on changing. She's like, 1 second the flag bearer was her sister, the next second it was her dad, the next second was her mom, the next second was Mulin. Like it was like her like dreaming or having this
Oh
like
no, but in real life, the book opens up with the flag bearer, and that
oh
flag
yeah.
bearer was like the fifth battalion, right? So they were part.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you're saying. I see what
Yeah,
you're
so
saying.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
relating the images. So but they weren't part of the revolution,
They
the
weren't part of it. So
battalion.
then it wouldn't have been her sister. You're right. No, you're right. You're
So
right.
then
You're right.
it wouldn't have been her sister because her sister was right.
Yep. Yep. And
But
that's
that's a
the
good. That would have been nice. That would have been nice.
it would have been, but I think you're right. I don't think it is her sister. But we did find out that her sister did die 2 years ago, which is like she literally has nobody in her life like ever. It's gone. Like it's just her. It's just her. But and then that's the end of that chapter. Then things start to pick up. When she wakes up, um, she is in a helicopter heading to Radar Peak. Radar Peak, and this is just like some mysterious peak, and where she was.
Well,
Go ahead.
they have described it in they described it in the earlier chapter that
Yeah.
there was this place with this big. I think they might have said antenna
Yeah.
where all the birds died. People had early cancer around the area. You
Everyone would
know,
go bald like your boy right here.
everyone goes bald like your boy right there,
Yeah,
and things like that. And
yeah,
that was high on the ridge, away from where they were cutting trees. And two guys went found there. They were chasing something to hunt and got shot at because it was shoot on sight.
exactly,
So
exactly.
it's a super secretive.
Super secretive. So when she wakes up from like the last thing we see her is she's like freezing. It's like that ice block days that she's feeling, and then when she wakes up, she's in a helicopter and she's got these dudes around her being like, is this you? Did you write this paper? And the name of the paper, I highlighted it, and I want to ask you. Oh, here we go. Here we go. The possible existence of phase boundaries within the solar radiation zone and their reflective characteristics. What the actual fuck are you talking about? When you read that, because they didn't mention anything in part one about that, what do you think of reading that title of that paper? What do you think that paper is about?
Well, it's funny. It's a lot easier to understand when you read it to me. It's a lot
Oh,
easier.
you wait for
I
real?
don't know why. Like I read the thing two times here, and then when you read it to me, that's what I was like, oh no, you read it. It makes so much more sense. It's
I
just the way my brain works.
it's not making any sense to me.
So
This like
basically,
jumble words to me.
so I mean, my guess that obviously this is a sci-fi book. So we're
Yep,
going into it knowing it's a sci-fi book,
of course.
and any sci-fi book, aliens. That's just what,
Yep, yep,
right? That's the end goal.
yep.
Okay, so when I look at it now, it's like the possible existence, the possible. So do they exist these phase boundaries, which could be molecular borders between like not atmospheres, but different kind of different phases of molecular composition. So if you send something out in a signal, would it be bounced back? Are there borders which exist between molecules within the solar radiation zone? So within all of what encompasses within the sun's zone of the earth, which I imagine is like a specific subset, of the atmosphere. Within this layer, are there certain borders which have certain reflective characteristics? So if you send a wave signal off them, will it bounce back? And what is that characteristic? How would it bounce back,
Yep.
etc.? And so what are the difference in those phases and what would the reflective reactions be? And that's what she wrote. And
That's
this is yeah.
I'm just saying your explanation is as good as it gets, because I literally stopped and I was like, let me try to figure this out so I can have an idea of where this book is going. And I couldn't come up with a fucking, like, not a single idea that would make sense with all of that put together. So I'm happy that you are here, Nate. I'm happy that we are doing this together, because
The mumble
thank
jumble
fucking God.
response. Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's better than I got, because I couldn't come up with something that would make sense for that. Like, but I'm not a science guy, so don't blame me. But yeah, so those two guys are like, did you write this paper? Of course you wrote this paper. And then we're taking you over to Radar Peak. And when they get to Radar Peak, they're like, we need you here because you wrote this paper. Your special scientific knowledge is going to help us with the super secretive military plan antenna thing that we're doing. But if you say yes, you can never leave here ever, ever, ever. This is going to be home. And she's just like, yeah, let's do it. And they're like, wait, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? She's like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, all right, let's get the shit done. I was kind of proud of her. I thought that was some badass shit.
I thought I was happy over too.
Yeah, I was like, you can really think about it. She's like, no, I don't need to think about it. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
I was also surprised by do that. I was like, here we see her voicing support for the people that she hates. But
oh yes.
At the same time, maybe she was just like, fuck it, this sounds like an adventure and I got nothing else to live for, and bring me in.
Yeah. And then the chapter wraps up with a whole part one wraps up with a whole bunch of mystery. She goes and she's standing outside while the other dude sets up her living situation. And while she's sitting outside, she's overhearing all of this mumbo jumbo military talk. Everybody get the lasers ready. Are you ready? Yes, you're ready. You know how they talk about in those fucking NASA space rooms in every movie. And they're like, all right, time to launch. 3, 2, 1, go. And they go. And this antenna beams up a blue light in the sky. And when she can barely see it because she can see based on the reflective nature of the clouds. And she knows it's there because first she thinks it's illusion, but then she knows it's there. And then when she sees birds fly into that beamed area, they drop dead immediately. And while all of this is happening, she can feel like a vibration, and she can, like, I don't know if she can hear things, or she said she had like a headache or something, but she can feel like physical sensations when this beam is happening. But the end result was it didn't work. And after everything was turned off, when it failed, when there was a malfunction, she looked up at the sky and she's like, what are they aiming at? I don't see a target. What is this whole thing? And that is the end of part one.
Yeah, that's it. And
that is it.
Just standing there, and she was kicked out of the actual like transmission room, and she was just standing out the outside, right?
Yep.
The guy was like, you can sit down, and there was a soldier there. And
she's like, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, I'm good. And then that's where you end it. That's where you end the first part, which is only 48 pages. So
exactly.
It's short.
Part two, we might have to, Nate, just first of all, thank you so much for doing this with me. I absolutely love it. Like, this makes me feel good. Like I'm enjoying the book already more because I get to talk to you about it, first and foremost. But second of all, we might have to break up part two into 2 parts, because I feel like or maybe we should just talk a little quicker and be a little less substantive. But I did enjoy that. Just to wrap this up, give me your prediction. What do you think that is? Like, what do you think they're doing?
I think you should give me yours, because I've read on.
Oh yeah. Oh,
so shit. What?
Well, thank you.
I assumed at that point, it's just like it's an alien beam or something. I assumed, what I actually thought was that blue light was an alien vessel, and like when they had this thing on, it was communicating with the vessel, and that just moved in and circulated, and that was the alien. They had been there. It's kind of like that movie, like Nope. You know that movie Nope?
Yeah, yep.
Where like the thing is always there. It's like the cloud, you just don't know.
I see.
I thought it was like that.
No, I'm way different. In fact, what I thought it was, because when the guy was explaining to him, to Yi, about what this project was, as bare bones as he did, he's just like, if we figure this out, it's gonna be bigger than the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb. So I was like, this is just a fucking laser. They're about to blow some motherfuckers up. Like I was as basic gets because that's what he compared it to. So I wasn't thinking of like obviously I knew the science would happen sooner or later, or like the aliens or whatever would happen sooner or later. But as of right now, all the entire book is about military stuff. They're talking about a hydrogen bomb and an atomic bomb, and they're shooting lasers in the sky and birds are dying. So I'm like, it's a fucking laser. Like, who are they going to burn to the smithereens, right? That's what I originally thought it was, but I'm getting from you that it's probably not just a cool laser.
No, that was just my guess back then, but who knows?
Who knows is right. So just to wrap this up, we obviously only had just read the part one. Just reading part one, what would you give a rating for the intro to this book?
An 8.
An 8. Okay.
I don't read that much at all. But
Oh,
so
I see.
I'd say an 8 because I wanted more aliens.
Okay. And you're excited to continue to read.
Yeah, and 8 was like, I wish there was just like some type of more allusion to an alien in this first book.
Gotcha.
But there's really no allusions to
nothing. Yeah, no, nothing. It's literally just like war, like I was saying earlier. For me, I'm intrigued. I'm interested. I'm definitely going to keep reading, but I'm not sold. I feel like it is a small part, so I feel like I'm judging it a little roughly, but I'm really not sold. I usually rate books 1 out of 5, so I was going to say like 3.5 stars.
Yeah,
but because,
4.
because it's exciting, it's interesting, I'm intrigued, but I'm not like hook, line, and sinker into the book just yet. It is part 1. But like I said in the beginning, if you do like sci-fi, this is going to touch you in some way, shape, or form. Like it's gonna call to you because there's so many interesting things that are just at the horizon of our information. She's an astrophysicist, her dad was a physicist. It's like, some hot shit is coming. I can't even describe to you the title of the fucking paper she researched. So like, if you like sci-fi, this is where you belong. Any final words, Nate?
No, read on.
Read on is right. Next time, hopefully we Google. Oh, last thing. Did you know that Silent Spring, you know that's a real book?
No, I think almost all the information in this is real. And once you get into like they reference scientists, they reference names, they reference like actual laws and theorems, and it's actually pretty miraculous. And that's why I'm wondering, I mean, just knowing what you now know about this actual scientific problem called the N-body problem, how does that manifest in the book? Because it's like kind of.
I'm telling you, I'm gonna have to Google that because I don't know, but I'm happy that you told me about it.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, in the comment section below, you tell us what you thought about part 1 and tell us what we missed. We got really deep into it, but you tell us what we missed. Catch you on the flip. Deuces. Hey, yeah, I like that. That's a good way to say goodbye.